I never was much of a runner. Despite having played soccer throughout my adolescence, I could never get motivated to do any longer distance runs. However, what I did enjoy was sprinting, and I was also quite good at that. But we all know that real growth comes from the things that you do outside of your comfort zone. The things that challenge you to step outside of your daily routines that feel familiar and comfortable. I also never set any New Year's resolutions because I feel like you shouldn't let a date dictate how or when you start to approach your goals. Hence also my life motto. The first step to get the things you want in life is this: decide what you want. But when my running fanatic brother texted me in November of 2021 if I wanted to run the Berlin half marathon in April 22, this posed as a good New Year's resolution and even more so as the perfect opportunity for me to step outside of my comfort zone. At the time, my baseline training condition as far as running was concerned was pretty much zero. I was training in the gym 5 days a week and playing recreational tennis 1 to 2 times a week on top of that. I couldn't even remember the last time I ran anything beyond 3 kilometers, let alone scratching the 10K mark, and I needed to run double that and then some. That meant I needed to get to work. So I got myself a training plan that seemed reasonable to me in terms of weekly training days, weekly mileage, and week-by-week progressions, and I started to hit the road. Just like any novice lifter, I made newbie gains quite quickly, which was intensely motivating, and seeing the progress over the course of the first weeks kept my spirits up. My mileage went up, my average heart rate decreased, so did my resting heart rate, and I could shave some seconds off my average pace per run. But I soon realized that I needed to do something about my gym routine, as the compounded training load and volume of my runs, in combination with lifting and tennis, was becoming too much. If I'm dead set on a goal, I'm quite strict on doing what's necessary to achieve it, and running had become my top priority at this point. So my lifts had taken a back seat and I squeezed a workout in on my off days from running, if at all. This was probably my first mistake in this whole journey, as we know of the benefits that resistance training has for running performance, economy, and overall health of a runner. I just wasn't consistent enough in my resistance training during my preparation for the half marathon. I also probably should have modified my resistance training sessions to include some more plyometrics. I mean, I even made videos about recommended strength exercise for runners for our running rehab course with Benoit Matthew. Oh well. So as the weeks went by, I honestly started to enjoy running. My mileage went up and I explored new running routes which kept the runs interesting, and I was again fascinated by our body's ability to adapt to different training stimuli. Being able to run both longer distances and at a faster pace, so running more than 10K for the first time as far as I can remember, then hitting a sub 50-minute 10K, was just as satisfying as setting a new squat PR. I did 3 runs per week: an easy short distance run at the start of the week, a medium distance run midweek with a focus on my desired half marathon pace while keeping my RPE in check, so I paid close attention to my breathing and my average heart rate, and then a long run over the weekend to build up overall mileage. Then February of 2022 comes around. 2 months until race day, and this is when I made the classic mistake of doing too much, too soon, and too fast. The trifecta of getting injured. I had completed the last 2 runs of January, both a 10K, at a significantly faster pace than usual, or better yet, than I was supposed to according to plan. While I was training for a comfortable 5-minute 20, 5-minute 30 pace for my half marathon, I ran a flat 5-minute and sub 5-minute pace. I went too fast. Then, on the first Saturday of February, I was supposed to run 17 kilometers, the longest distance I had ever run to this point. It was a beautiful day, and again I ran a new route. The run went really well and I became curious if I could complete 21 kilometers simply to prove to myself that I could run a half marathon. just to ease my mind about the upcoming race. But adding an extra 4 kilometers to my run and overall weekly mileage was a silly thing to do. I did too much and I did it too soon. This was not according to plan, and I know this is stupid, and you're probably thinking right now that as a PT, I should know better. And you're right. But so I completed the full 21K at my anticipated half marathon pace, and I was super excited about this. It gave me the confidence for race day. However, once back home, I could soon feel the repercussions of my actions that day. My left knee started to hurt and moving about the house was difficult. I just knew that I overdid it, so I took some rest. But I felt proud inside that I could go the distance. The next day, the soreness went down, and after 2 days, it was gone. I was relieved that I could pick up my training plan as scheduled, and still fueled by my recent achievement, I again went a little too fast on my next 2 short runs. Then, on the 3rd run of the week, it hit me. Not the knee, but my plantar fascia. After just 2 kilometers, I had to quit my run. To be honest with you, that's the point when I panicked a little. I did not know if that would take me out of the race. For the following week, I threw the kitchen sink at it. I took some NSAIDs to slow down cell proliferation, and the analgesic effect on top was also appreciated. I performed daily heavy slow resistance training, including straight and bent leg calf raises with extra stretch on the big toe, plantar fascia stretching, ankle dorsiflexion mobilizations, and Lodi taping on top of that. Luckily, I didn't have many symptoms during my ADLs, and I could even play tennis without seeing an increase in symptoms the following day. But I knew I would need to get back to running if I wanted to make it to Berlin. So I attempted a first 3K treadmill run on the 22nd of February and a 5K on the 25th, which I could luckily complete, and that came at a relief. This gave me the confidence to get back on the road for running. I stuck with doing my rehab exercises on off days from running and some auxiliary work before or after my runs. But that's when I made a switch, which I think made things worse. My footwear. My brother, who is an avid runner and works for Adidas, told me about a new shoe that had all the bells and whistles. Lightweight, bouncy cushioning, and rods in the sole of the shoe for more propulsion. When I first tried it on, it felt great. I made a conscious decision to build up my mileage slowly in the new shoe, so I only wore it for my short runs in the beginning. Now, in March, I could build up my runs back to 12K at a reasonable pace that I had anticipated for the half marathon. 2 weeks go by and I lace up my new shoes and go out for an 8K run along my usual route from the office into the city along the Amstel River. I have to cross an intersection on that route, and if there's one thing I hate while running, it is having to stop at a crosswalk. As I saw the pedestrian traffic light turn green in the distance, I started a mid-run sprint to make it across the intersection in time. I would suffer the consequences a couple kilometers later. On the return leg of my run, I suddenly felt a sharp pain on the outside of my left knee, which was also giving way. I tried to shake it out, but I just couldn't. I was devastated as I had 2 kilometers to go back to the office. So I walked for a bit and tried to start running again, but it took but 10 meters or so and my knee would give way and hurt again. I knew this was likely to be ITB pain. To be honest, I panicked. I thought to myself, that's it, Andreas. I have to cancel the race in Berlin. Mind you, that's 18 days before the race, and I have not seen anyone magically rehabbing ITB pain in a matter of a couple of weeks. Gradual return to running commonly takes a good 4 weeks already if you are really strict. I was familiar with Rich Willie's work on ITB pain rehab, and Kai also made an elaborate video on the 5 stages of rehab for ITB pain. I wanted to do everything I could to get me into the best shape possible and to hopefully make it across the finish line in Berlin on April 3rd. But I had to speed run it. So, stage 1. This stage really didn't last long, as pain when descending stairs subsided after 2 days, so I could move on to the load-dominant phase. I did a combination of Bulgarian split squats, hip thrusts and other hip abductor strengthening exercises, and I loaded them up as fast as possible to see how far I could push it. I did this every day along with uphill treadmill walking. On top, I was still doing calf raises for my plantar fasciitis. I also pretty soon started plyometric exercises because I was aware of the energy storage capacity of the ITB and that I would need to train that. I was surprised how well those went, to be honest. I did hops, jumps and lateral skaters with resistance, but I didn't go running for a total of 13 out of the 18 days. However, I needed to know if I could return to running at all. It was now March 28th, 5 days until race day. So I arbitrarily said to myself, you know, if I can run 5K today and then 8K 2 days after, then I can make it across the finish line. I know it sounds absolutely insane, but I was able to complete the 2 treadmill runs only feeling light symptoms. I was hyper aware of my knee the entire time though, analyzing anything I was feeling. I paid close attention to my cadence, to my foot strike and step width. If I'm honest with myself, I did anything to give myself this illusion that I was ready to run a half marathon despite everything that had happened the weeks before. Oh well. And so I traveled to Berlin. I arrived 2 days before to be well rested for the race on Sunday. On Saturday, I had a fascinating pain experience that I want to talk about. I was so focused on my knee that I suddenly felt things I hadn't felt before. My left hamstring suddenly started hurting, like I had a muscle strain. It felt like I had a sore patella too. It felt like I was hypervigilant and that my smoke detector was too sensitive all of a sudden and made my knee overly sensitive. My brain seemed to do anything to protect the knee to be in the best shape for the next day, or to just prevent me from running. Race day arrived and I was honestly nervous. I had a small breakfast and did a couple of hip exercises with an elastic loop to warm up. So we make our way to the starting line. I caffeinated, I took some ibuprofen, had my Lodi foot tape on, and I was full of adrenaline. And so I went on my way, still aiming for a pace of 5:30 per kilometer. Luckily, it was quite a cold but sunny day, which was great for running. As this was my first official race, I was in the last starting block of the over 30,000 runners that ran that day, and I had to make my way through the crowds first until I found my place in the pack that allowed me to run my anticipated and comfortable pace. The first 5K go by and I'm still doing fine. I get my first water and I continue on, making sure I don't overdo it with the pace and keep an eye out for my heart rate. At 8K, I take my glucose gel, which fuels me again, and my knee is still doing fine at this point. From here on out, it's the unknown. At the 12 to 13 kilometer point, I can feel it a little, but I take out a bit of pace and refuel at 15K with my second glucose gel. Also, the crowd that's standing along the way cheering us on really helps to distract me. And much to my relief, my knee pain did not kick me out of the race. I did feel a pressure around the outside of my left knee the whole time, but it never became that sharp pain I had felt before. In the context of the race, it also wouldn't have been advantageous to project pain. I gotta thank my beautiful brain for this. But it wouldn't be a race if I didn't go on an all-out last stint for the remaining 3 kilometers, pushing my average pace down to a 5:16 per kilometer. So I got my medal. I'm happy to have finished the race, and once the adrenaline had settled, my knee went very unhappy with me. I could barely walk for the rest of the day and the better part of the next day when I had to travel back to the Netherlands. Coincidentally, once I was back from the Netherlands, the people from runeasy.ai reached out to us after having worked with our ACL rehab instructor and lower limb specialist Bart Dingenen on a different project. They developed technology using wearable sensors and artificial intelligence to provide personalized biomechanical insights to runners without the need for an expensive indoor-only 3D motion lab. They were kind enough to send us their wearable kit to try out and give feedback on, and it came at the perfect time for me to include in my return to running rehab for my ITB pain. As I had already mentioned, the reason I think I got injured was the classic triad of doing too much, too fast, too soon, not regularly doing my other strength and conditioning work, and maybe the change of footwear that wasn't really ideal. But an aspect I hadn't looked at thoroughly yet was my running biomechanics. So I was back doing regular strength work in the gym and slowly returning to running, with my goal being to at least be able to run a 10K a week. While I was returning to running, I noticed that there seemed to be this tipping point around the 2 to 3 kilometer mark. That's when I could noticeably feel my knee pain getting worse, so much that I would have to cease running shortly after. And I couldn't seem to work my way beyond anything longer than 4 kilometers. I wanted to find out what was happening exactly. Or, better, does anything change in my running form or performance after 2 to 3 kilometers? That's when I thought I'd give the Run Easy wearable a shot. I set it up on our office tablet, hopped on our treadmill and started an analysis in biofeedback mode, which would give me real-time feedback on parameters such as impact magnitude, impact duration, ground contact time, cadence, and dynamic instability. So while I was running, I cycled through the different parameters to see if anything was noticeable. I could already see that my impact was higher on the right side, to which I thought, maybe I'm subconsciously taking load off my left leg already, but it was only a minor difference. However, looking at the data on dynamic instability, I could notice while approaching 10 minutes of running that there was a noticeable difference in readings between my left and my right side, which coincided with symptoms arising in my left knee. This was identical to what I felt on the road as well. This is when I was trying out different cues to see what could change my symptoms as well as the readings on the tablet. My cadence was alright, so shortening my strides wasn't an option. I tried different step width, but that didn't do the trick either. But when I tried a different hip strategy, as in the stork exercise you might be familiar with, during ground contact of my left leg, this seemed to do the trick. I was actively focusing on engaging the lateral hip muscles, effectively locking the hip, and this led to a decrease in the readings of the wearable as well as improved my symptoms. This was an eye-opening moment because when I stopped the strategy, symptoms would return and the readings on the app would reflect it too, and when I focused on deploying my newly found strategy again, they changed for the better. I continued running until I hit 5 kilometers and then I stopped because I felt confident that I had found what to work on to get my mileage back up without aggravating my symptoms in the process. Personally, this was very valuable information, as this appeared to be the missing piece in my rehab puzzle that I otherwise wouldn't have found out about. I was doing progressive strength work, as previously explained. I had good strength markers on both limbs, I included plyometrics, and I had a graded return to running program, but the latter just didn't want to progress as I wanted it to. I know that rehab is not this linear process, but I was making good strength gains, but my running distance just didn't want to catch up. I usually don't get a lot of muscle soreness anymore after training, but the day following my running analysis session, where I found this new hip strategy, I could really feel soreness in my lateral hip muscles. For me, that was an indicator that I may have found a weak link in my running biomechanics, which I will need to work on. You probably want to know how I did that. So, did I do A, daily sets of hip abductions, B, 3 times 100 hip stork exercises, C, E-stim to my gluteus medius, or D, I just went running? You're right, I just continued with a graded return to running. But I focused on my hip strategy to engage my hip muscles more specifically during ground contact time of my stance leg. Yes, I know I can work on strengthening my hip with exercises, but I was doing that already. I'm doing double and single leg exercises, gradually overloading those as well, but the cyclical nature of running is different from the more static gym-based environment. So I focused on training my form during running. And this allowed me to finally break through running 5, 6, 7, 8 and now closing in to run 10 kilometers again at a reasonable pace and without flare-ups of my knee pain, most importantly. I am not symptom-free, but the symptoms don't prevent me from finishing my runs, nor do they affect my ADLs, and they calm down within 24 hours. I don't feel this sharp pain anymore, but it's more of this pressure-like feeling, if at all. You could say that I'm poking the bear, but I'm not waking it up. So here's what my current training looks like. Monday to Friday, I do strength training with 2 leg sessions per week and some core exercises. I play tennis 1 to 2 times a week, and I go for a run on the weekends, slowly upping the distance every other week. That's it. I'm taking my time with this, and I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it, but it fits with my work and other sports and activities. I'm not making running a top priority anymore, as I enjoy lifting and tennis more, but I want to keep 1 run a week in my program. So that's why my program looks the way it is. Now, you might be asking yourself, how would I teach this strategy to a patient? I don't think there's a verbal cue that I could give to the patient and they could put that into action on the spot. Running is too fast of a movement for that. I would probably first regress off the treadmill and start with hip hikes or the stork exercise in a static environment. Then I would try to do it more dynamically, and the patient will feel the hip engaging more, and then try it at low walking speed and build up speed gradually. So there you have it, my journey from 0 kilometers a week to the first half marathon in 5 months. How I got injured along the way and how I am rehabbing it now. Rehabbing your own injury as a physio is always a great learning moment, and these injuries become the best injuries to treat with others, as you can better relate to their situation. And yes, I have made the same mistakes that a patient usually makes too. Doing too much, too fast, too soon. Even though you'd think I should know better, but I'm human too, and I can get carried away by the achievements I have made and thinking I can suddenly do anything. Sticking to a plan is hard. Remember that when working with your patients as well. If you want to find out more about the materials I have mentioned in this video, such as our exercises for runners video, check the video description. Also, there's a link to find out more about the Run Easy wearable if you are curious to learn more. Benoit Matthew has worked with us to create a comprehensive online course to treat running-related injuries that I have also consulted during my own rehab. And you can find out more about this course on our website. The link is also in the video description. With that said, thank you very much for watching. If you're still here, this was Andreas for Physiotutors, and I will see you next time. Bye.